At my ex-wife's memorial reception, my son took the little blue music box out of my hands, smashed it against the marble floor, and smiled while the last song his mother ever loved died in pieces. "You deserve nothing, Dad," Julian said loud enough for the lawyers, bankers, donors, and cousins to hear. "Not her money, not her name, not even a chair in this room." My granddaughter Grace was standing beside the refreshment table in her black dress, holding a paper cup of lemonade with both hands. She was 11 years old, thin as a willow branch, with her grandmother's gray eyes. When the music box broke, she flinched like somebody had slapped her. I did not answer my son. I bent down slowly, picked up the broken wooden pieces. The tiny blue bird with one wing snapped off, and the brass key that had fallen out from under the base. Julian did not see the key, but the lawyer did. And 3 days later, when my ex-wife's $240 million will was open in a glass conference room, that same lawyer looked across the table at my son and said, "Mr. Whitaker, the man you just humiliated is the only person your mother trusted to decide whether you inherit a single dollar. My name is Thomas Whitaker. I am 73 years old, retired from the United States Postal Inspection Service, and I live in a small brick house in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, 2 blocks from a church bell that rings 5 minutes late every Sunday morning. For 31 years, I investigated stolen mail, forged signatures, fake money orders, missing pension checks, and people who thought a paper trail could be buried if they lied with enough confidence. I learned early that liars love speed. Truth moves slower, but it arrives with receipts. My ex-wife, Eleanor Chandler Whitaker, used to say that was why she married me. "You notice small things, Tom," she told me once, "before life got complicated. The whole world walks past the little things. You stop and ask why they're there." Eleanor and I were married for 28 years. We had 2 children. Julian, our oldest, was brilliant, restless, and hard to please even as a boy. Our daughter Mara was softer. She loved birds, old songs, and pancakes burned on one side. Mara died when she was 17, and no marriage comes through that kind of loss without cracks. Eleanor buried herself in work. I buried myself in silence. We did not hate each other when we divorced. That is what Julian never understood. There was no shouting in the courthouse, no scandal, no new romance, no affair. Just 2 tired people who had loved each other through one child's grave and did not know how to keep breathing in the same house. Eleanor kept her maiden name after the divorce and built Chandler Care Systems from a small medical transport company into one of the largest private health logistics firms in the country. Hospitals, labs, elder care networks, medication delivery contracts. She knew how to move fragile things safely from one place to another. I kept my pension, my old truck, and the house we bought when Julian was 8. People thought I lost in that divorce. Maybe I did on paper. But Eleanor still called me every Christmas. She still sent me photographs of Grace when Julian forgot. She still asked my advice when something did not feel right. And 5 months before she died, she came to my kitchen with that little blue music box wrapped in a yellow towel. It was old, not valuable to anyone who measured things by money. A hand-carved blue jay sat on top, turning in a slow circle when the song played. I had given it to Eleanor on our first anniversary from a flea market in Lancaster. It played, always. Not well. The notes were thin and soft, and sometimes one note clicked instead of ringing. Eleanor loved it anyway. That afternoon, she sat at my yellow kitchen table with her scarf still around her neck and her hands folded over the towel. "Tom," she said, "when I'm gone, Julian is going to make a performance out of grief." I tried to stop her. "Don't talk like that. I have pancreatic cancer," she said. "I have a board full of men pretending not to measure my office curtains. I have a son who thinks love is a voting share. And I have a granddaughter who watches every adult in her life to see who is safe." Her voice did not break. Eleanor had always been calmest when the ground was falling away. She slid the music box toward me. "Bring this to the memorial," she said. "Not the funeral. The reception after. He'll let the funeral look proper. But the reception is where he'll show himself." "Eleanor, what are you saying?" "I am saying Julian has been waiting for me to die." That sentence sat between us like a loaded gun. I looked at the little blue jay through the towel. "Why give me this?" "Because if he can honor a poor little music box, maybe there's still enough of my son left to save. If he destroys it, then you take what falls out and go to Daniel Levin." "Who is Daniel Levin?" "My estate attorney, not the one Julian knows about." I remember staring at her hands. They were thinner than I remembered. The wedding ring was gone, of course, but there was still a pale mark where it had lived for nearly 30 years. "What falls out?" I asked. Eleanor's eyes filled then, but she did not cry. "A door," she said, "one I should have opened years ago." She died on a Thursday morning in a private care suite outside Philadelphia. Julian called me 6 hours later, not to tell me she was gone, but to ask whether I planned to attend the service. "You can come," he said, "but keep it quiet." Mom had a certain public image. "She was my wife once. She was your ex-wife for 22 years. She was still your mother." He sighed like I was a bill he had to pay. "Just don't make it about you." The memorial reception was held at the Chandler Foundation Hall, a glass and limestone building Eleanor had paid for beside the Susquehanna River. Her portrait stood near the entrance, lit by soft lamps. She looked younger in the photograph than she had at the end, wearing her pearl earrings and the small, private smile she used when she did not trust the room. Julian stood beside the portrait, in a dark suit that probably cost more than my truck. He had Eleanor's sharp cheekbones and my dark hair before mine turned white. At 46, he looked like a man designed for interviews. Calm, polished, empty behind the eyes when he thought nobody important was watching. His wife Vanessa floated beside him in black silk, greeting donors by first name and checking her reflection in every window. Vanessa had married Julian 7 years earlier when Chandler Care started expanding into elder tech. She came from old Philadelphia money that had mostly disappeared except for the manners. She treated kindness like a household staff problem. Grace saw me before they did. Grandpa Tom, she did not run. Grace had learned not to run indoors because Julian hated undisciplined movement. But she walked fast, and when she reached me, she pressed her face against my coat. I held the music box under one arm and touched her hair. "Hi, Gracie. Dad said you might not come. Your grandmother asked me to." Grace looked at the towel. "Is that Nana's blue bird?" "It is." Her eyes warmed for the first time that day. "She played it for me when I couldn't sleep." She said broken songs still count. Before I could answer, Julian appeared. His smile was for the room. His voice was for me. "Dad, I see you brought props." I looked at my son, and for a moment I saw him at 10 years old, sitting at our kitchen table, trying not to cry over a model airplane wing that would not glue straight. I had fixed it with a toothpick in patience. He had hugged me then. That boy was nowhere in the man standing in front of me. "Your mother asked me to bring it," I said. Julian's smile tightened. "My mother was heavily medicated at the end." Grace looked down. I saw it. That small shrinking. The way children fold themselves when adults make truth unsafe. She knew what she wanted, I said. Vanessa stepped closer, perfume first. "Thomas, this is not really the place for flea market memories. Eleanor's donors are here, board members, media. It's a music box," I said, "not a scandal." Julian laughed once. "That depends on who's holding it." A few people nearby went quiet. Not many. Just enough. Grace whispered, "Dad, please." Julian looked at her, and the softness left his face. "Grace, go stand with your mother. I want to hear Nana's song." Something moved in Julian's jaw. He reached out and took the towel from my arms. "Julian," I said quietly. He unwrapped the music box. The blue jay caught the light. For 1 second, the whole room seemed to hold its breath. Then Julian turned it over, saw the scratches on the base, and his face filled with disgust. "This," he said, raising it slightly, "is exactly what I'm talking about." People turned. "Mom spent her life building something respected," he continued, voice smooth and cruel. "Hospitals, foundations, real impact. And you show up with this cheap little reminder of the years before she became somebody." "She was somebody before the money," I said. His eyes flashed. "No, Dad, she became somebody after she stopped carrying you." Grace made a small sound. I could have raised my voice then. A younger man might have. A prouder man might have stepped forward. But Eleanor's words came back to me. "If he destroys it, take what falls out." Julian held the music box between us. "You deserve nothing, Dad. Not her money, not her name, not even a chair in this room." Then he dropped it, not by accident, not from grief. He lifted his hand and threw that small blue bird hard against the marble floor. The sound was not loud. That made it worse. Wood cracked. Metal snapped. The little song inside gave 3 broken notes and went silent. Grace's lemonade cup slipped from her hands and spilled across her shoes. Nobody moved. Julian looked at the broken pieces near my feet and said, "Clean that up before someone important trips." I bent down. My knees hurt, my back hurt, my chest hurt in a place no doctor could see. I picked up the Blue Jay first. One painted wing had broken clean off. Then the base, then the cracked mirror, then the tiny brass key that had slid out from a hollow space beneath the winding mechanism. It was no longer than my thumb, with a number etched along the side. CCS 19 blue. I covered it with my palm. Across the room, a man in a charcoal suit had stopped speaking to another lawyer. He was older, maybe 65, with silver eyebrows and a face that had spent years giving bad news carefully. His eyes went from my hand to Julian, then back to me. I knew before he introduced himself. Daniel Levin. He did not approach immediately. He waited until I had wrapped the broken music box in the towel. He waited until Julian turned away to accept condolences from a bank president. Then he passed behind me near the hallway and spoke without moving his mouth much. "Mr. Whitaker," he said, "do not leave that key in your coat pocket." I looked at him. "Eleanor told me to find you." "She told me you would," he said. "There is a private conference room downstairs. 10 minutes. That was the first moment I understood the music box had not been a memory. It had been a test. And my son had failed it in front of witnesses. Downstairs, the foundation building smelled like polished stone and coffee. Daniel Levin closed the conference room door and turned the lock. He did not waste time with comfort. "May I see it?" I placed the key on the table. Daniel took out reading glasses and studied the etched letters. His shoulders dropped, not with surprise, but with the sadness of a man who had been waiting for something he hoped would not happen. "She was right," he said. "About what?" "About Julian." I sat down slowly. Daniel opened his briefcase and removed a sealed envelope. It had Eleanor's handwriting across the front. "For Thomas, if the Blue Jay breaks." My throat tightened. Daniel pushed it toward me. "I cannot read this for you. She wanted you to read it yourself." My hands were steady when I opened it. That surprised me. Maybe old inspectors do not shake until the work is done. "Tom, if you are reading this, then Julian chose pride over tenderness in a room full of people. I am sorry. I kept hoping he would remember the boy who used to sleep with that Blue Jay under his pillow after Mara died. I kept hoping Grace would soften him. I kept hoping money would be a tool in his hands, not a weapon. I was wrong. The key opens box 19 at Commonwealth Charter Bank. Daniel knows the rest. Do not trust the will Julian has seen. Do not trust the board packet. Do not trust anything signed after March 3rd of last year, unless Daniel verifies it. Most of all, protect Grace. He has plans for her that are not love. You once promised me that if anything ever happened to me, you would make sure our family did not become cruel just because it became rich. I am asking you to keep that promise now. Eleanor." I read the last line twice. "Protect Grace." I looked up at Daniel. "What plans?" Daniel's face hardened. Julian has been trying to gain full control over Grace's education trust and the voting shares Eleanor placed in her name. Eleanor blocked him twice. After her diagnosis became public, he started preparing a guardianship petition. Against who? Against Grace. I stared at him. She's 11. He wants her declared emotionally unstable enough to justify placement in a private behavioral academy in Montana. Very expensive, very isolated. No ordinary family court oversight once parents sign the contract. The room seemed to tilt. Why would he do that? Because Grace owns what he does not. Daniel opened another folder and slid a chart across the table. Chandler Care Systems. Voting structure. Trust layers. Foundation shares. Family Class B shares. I had investigated mail fraud for 3 decades. I could read a scheme when someone put it in front of me. Eleanor's estate was worth roughly $240 million, but she had not left it in one clean pile for Julian to scoop up. Years earlier, she had divided control among trusts, charitable obligations, employee protections, and a separate holding company for Grace. Grace did not control the money herself, of course. She was a child, but the shares in her trust could block a sale. Julian wanted to sell Chandler Care to a private equity group out of New York. Grace's trust could stop him. Eleanor's will, the real will, could stop him. And I apparently had been placed somewhere in the middle. Daniel tapped one line with his pen. Eleanor name you independent trust protector over Grace's trust and special executor over any estate dispute involving Julian. My divorce doesn't prevent that? No. She had every right to appoint you. Julian does not know. He believes the operative will name him primary executor. Does it? Daniel's mouth tightened. It did. Until Eleanor changed it after she discovered forged transfer documents. I leaned back. Forged by Julian. We believe so. Believe, Tom, by Friday morning we need to prove it. There it was. The ticking clock. Friday. What happens Friday? The company sale closes at 9 a.m. If Julian gets the court to recognize his version of the will before then, he can push the sale through. Once those assets move, recovering them becomes a war that could take years. And Grace. Daniel hesitated. Julian has transport scheduled for Monday morning. School withdrawal forms already drafted. He told the academy she has defiance, grief instability, and unhealthy attachment to deceased relatives. I thought of Grace asking to hear Nana's song. Broken songs still count. My son wanted to send that child away because she remembered too much. I picked up the brass key. Then we start with the bank. Commonwealth Charter Bank sat on Market Street in a building that looked like it had been designed to outlive everyone inside it. Daniel and I went there the next morning. The safe deposit manager, Mrs. Munthink, Patel, knew Daniel and knew the box number before he said it. Mrs. Chandler came here herself last spring, she said softly. She was very weak, but very clear. She took us into a private room and left us with box 19. The key turned once. Inside was not treasure. It was worse for Julian. Documents, original wills, medical evaluations, signed letters, flash drives, printed emails, bank confirmations, a small digital recorder, and a thin folder labeled Grace. Daniel closed his eyes for 1 second. She always made copies, he whispered. I almost smiled. That sounds like Eleanor. The first document was the real will, signed 18 months earlier, witnessed by 2 nurses and notarized by a bank officer Julian could not control. It named Daniel as estate counsel, me as special executor and trust protector, and Grace's trust as the main long-term beneficiary. Julian would receive a conditional inheritance, but only if he did not challenge the will, did not interfere with Grace's trust, and did not attempt to sell Chandler Care against the employee protection clauses Eleanor had built. The second document was a physician's statement confirming Eleanor was mentally sharp when she signed. The third was a letter to the court. Then came the flash drive. Daniel looked at me. Are you ready? No, I said. Play it, anyway. The video opened with Eleanor sitting in what looked like her study. Her hair was covered with a pale scarf. She looked smaller than she had at my kitchen table, but her eyes were still hers. Tom, she said to the screen, I am sorry for putting you back inside this storm. Daniel stopped breathing for a moment beside me. Eleanor continued, Julian has been moving money through consulting agreements to companies tied to Vanessa's brother. He has pressured me to approve the sale of Chandler Care to Northbridge Capital. I refused because the sale would close rural delivery programs, cut elder medication routes, and remove the employee pension guarantees. He told me I was sentimental. I told him sentiment is just another word for remembering who gets hurt. She paused to sip water. 3 months ago, I discovered a transfer authorization bearing my signature. I did not sign it. It would have moved Grace's voting shares into a management LLC controlled by Julian. When I confronted him, he said I was confused for medication. That is when I called Daniel. My hands curled into fists under the table. Eleanor looked into the camera like she could see me. Tom, if Julian is kind to you after I die, let Daniel handle the estate quietly. Do not make a war. But if he humiliates you, if he destroys the Blue Jay, if he shows you that he has become the man I feared, then open everything. The video cut to a second file. This one was audio. Julian's voice. Mom, you're being irrational. Grace is a child. She doesn't need voting rights. Eleanor's voice, thin but firm. Grace needs protection from adults who confuse control with care. You mean from me. I mean from anyone. I'm your son. You are also asking me to sign away your daughter's future. A chair scraped. Then Julian said words I will never forget. Grace is too much like Mara, weak, sensitive, always making people carry her feelings. I am not letting another fragile girl control this family. Daniel stopped the recording. The room was silent. Mara had been dead 29 years, and my son was still using her as an insult. I stood up and walked to the small window. Outside, people moved along Market Street with coffee cups and phones and ordinary problems. I pressed one hand flat against the wall. I had failed my son somewhere. I do not say that to excuse him. A man is responsible for what he becomes. But fathers look for the crack in the foundation. We cannot help it. We replay the years, the missed games, the harsh words, the quiet dinners, the crashed words, the quiet dinners, the grief we thought children did not see. Daniel let me stand there. Then he said, "There is more. There always is." The Grace folder contained school counselor notes. I read them one by one, and each page felt like a small stone placed on my chest. Grace Whitaker often expresses fear of disappointing father. Grace reports father says crying is performance behavior. Grace requested to call grandfather after argument at home. Request denied by parent. Grace states grandmother promised she would not be sent away. Grace drew picture of blue bird in locked cage. At the bottom of the last page, the counselor had written, "Child appears emotionally attached to paternal grandfather and deceased grandmother. Recommend maintaining stable family contact." Julian had used that note backward. He claimed the attachment was unhealthy. He claimed I was confusing Grace, just like he had accused me of confusing him. That afternoon, Daniel brought in Maya Ortiz, a private investigator and former Pennsylvania State Police detective. She was in her 50s, sharp-eyed, calm, and allergic to nonsense. She listened for 10 minutes, read for 20, then looked at me. "Your son moves fast because he thinks rich people don't leave fingerprints," she said. "They do. They just call them contracts." For the next 48 hours, we worked. Daniel filed an emergency petition to preserve the estate and stop the sale. Maya dug through public records, corporate filings, and court databases. I did what I had done all my working life. I followed signatures. A forged signature has a rhythm problem. It can look right and still breathe wrong. Eleanor's real signature leaned slightly upward at the end, as if her hand was still moving toward the future. The transfer documents Julian submitted had her name shaped correctly, but the pressure was dead. Too even. Too careful. I checked the notary stamp. Too careful. I checked the notary stamp. The notary listed on 3 documents was a woman named Paula Renshaw. Her commission was real. Her stamp was real. But one notarization was dated a day Eleanor had been admitted for an emergency procedure in Philadelphia. The hospital visitor logs showed Julian had been there that day. Paula Renshaw's office was in King of Prussia. Impossible. When Maya called her, Paula started crying before the second question. Vanessa's brother, Reed Callahan, had hired her for routine family paperwork. She had notarized blank signature pages after being told Eleanor would sign later. Illegal. Stupid. Common. By Thursday morning, Maya found the money trail. Reed Callahan owned a consulting firm called Lantern Strategic. Chandler Care had paid Lantern $4.8 million in transition readiness fees over 9 months. Lantern had transferred $1.6 million to an account connected to Julian's private investment fund. Another $900,000 had gone to pay down Vanessa's family trust debt. Julian was not just trying to inherit, he'd already been stealing. Thursday night, my son called me. I was sitting in my kitchen with the broken music box spread across a towel. I had not eaten since breakfast. The house was quiet except for the refrigerator hum and the church bell ringing late as usual. I answered. "Dad," Julian said, "we need to talk like adults." That would be new. Silence. Then a soft laugh. "You always did that. One little line, quiet judgment. Mom found it charming. I found it weak." I looked at the Blue Jay's broken wing. "What do you want, Julian? I know you met with Levin." "Yes. I know about the key. Yes. I know about the key. Yes." His voice sharpened. "Do you have any idea what you're interfering with? Your mother's wishes." "No. A company, employees, a sale that took 2 years to build. You think because you delivered mail fraud cases in the 1980s you understand corporate law? I understand theft. You understand nothing." There it was again, the boy who could not stand being seen. He lowered his voice. "I am willing to give you one chance. Sign a statement saying Mom was emotionally unstable near the end and that you were confused about whatever she told you. I will arrange a private settlement, $2 million, more money than you've seen in your life." "No. $3 million. And you never contact Grace again." My chest went cold. "No." His mask fell. "You don't get to take my daughter. I'm trying to keep you from throwing her away. She is mine. No child is property." Julian breathed hard into the phone. "You listen to me, old man. Mom may have enjoyed turning you into some last-minute hero in her little revenge fantasy, but tomorrow morning, reality wins. I have the board. I have the sale documents. I have Vanessa's family behind me. And I have a petition ready showing you are an unstable elderly man who stole a valuable item from a memorial reception and has been harassing my daughter. There it was, the counterattack, Daniel predicted. You're filing against me. It's already filed. Emergency protective order. You come near Grace, you go to jail. I close my eyes. You broke the music box, Julian, in front of witnesses. You brought it to provoke me. You called your mother's last memory trash. I called you what you are. And what is that? A man who couldn't keep his wife, couldn't save his daughter, and now wants to steal his granddaughter because he has nothing else. I looked at the wall where an old photograph of Eleanor, Mara, Julian, and me hung in a plain wooden frame. Beach trip, 1989. Julian had ice cream on his shirt. Mara had both arms around Eleanor. I looked younger than I ever felt. When I spoke, my voice was quiet. I spent 31 years finding letters people tried to hide. You should have known better. He hung up. I sat in the kitchen a long time after that. That was my low point. Not the humiliation, not the broken music box, not even the money. It was hearing my son use my dead daughter as a blade. For a few minutes, I almost let myself become the tired old man he wanted the court to see. I wanted to put everything back in the box. Shut the lid, and let rich people fight rich people. I wanted peace. I wanted Eleanor alive. I wanted Mara laughing in the hallway. I wanted Julian at 10 years old with glue on his fingers and trust in his eyes. Then my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Grandpa Tom, it's Grace. I used the nurse's phone. Dad says I'm leaving Monday. Did I do something bad? I read it once, then again, then I stood up. No, sweetheart. I typed, you did nothing bad. Keep your bluebird drawing safe. I am coming to court tomorrow. The reply came 2 minutes later. Nana said you would. I pressed the phone to my chest and cried for the first time in months. Friday morning, the probate courtroom in Dauphin County was full before 9. Not because ordinary probate hearings draw crowds, but because $240 million attracts people who pretend they're there for procedure. Julian sat at the front with Vanessa, Reed Callahan, 2 corporate attorneys, and a public relations woman who kept whispering into his ear. He looked calm. He wore a navy suit and a silver tie. He did not look at me when I entered. Grace was not there. Daniel had insisted she be kept away unless the judge requested her. I was grateful. Children should not have to watch adults put prices on their safety. Judge Helen Markham presided. She was small, gray-haired, and known for reading every page before anyone tried to summarize it for her. That made Julian's lawyers nervous. His lead attorney, a tall man named Benton Vale, stood first. Your Honor, this is a straightforward matter complicated by grief and opportunism. Mrs. Messies. Chandler Whitaker executed a valid estate plan naming her son Julian Whitaker as primary executor and corporate successor. Days after her death, her ex-husband Thomas Whitaker produced a mysterious key from a damaged personal item and now seeks to disrupt a major corporate sale based on alleged documents of questionable origin. I listened. Liars love speed. Mr. Vale continued. Mr. Vale, Whitaker has no financial stake, no current family standing, and no business expertise. His sudden insertion into this estate appears motivated by resentment and possible cognitive decline. Daniel rose slowly. Your Honor, may I respond with evidence instead of adjectives? Judge Markham looked over her glasses. Please do. Daniel began with the music box, not emotionally, legally. He called 3 witnesses from the memorial reception, a foundation donor, a catering manager, a retired board member. Each testified that Julian took the music box from me, insulted me publicly, and threw it to the floor. Then Daniel played security footage from the reception hall. There was my son on a large screen, polished and cruel. You deserve nothing, Dad. Not her money, not her name, not even a chair in this room. The courtroom did not gasp. Real courtrooms rarely do. But people shifted. Vanessa looked down. Julian's face hardened. Daniel paused the footage at the moment the music box struck the floor. Your Honor, the item Mr. Vale called mysterious was placed in Mr. Bell, Whitaker's possession by the decedent before her death. The key inside led to a safe deposit box rented and maintained by Eleanor Chandler Whitaker under attorney supervision. He entered the bank records. Mrs. Patel testified by video. She confirmed Eleanor opened box 19 herself, placed documents inside, and left access instructions naming Daniel and me. Then came the real will. Benton Vale objected to everything. Authenticity, chain of custody, relevance, timing. Judge Markham overruled him more often than not. Daniel submitted the physician competency statement, the witness list, the notary record, the video message. When Eleanor appeared on the courtroom screen, Julian looked away. I did not. Eleanor's voice filled the room. If Julian is kind to you after I die, let Daniel handle the estate quietly. Do not make a war. But if he humiliates you, if he destroys the Blue Jay, if he shows you that he has become the man I feared, then open everything. The judge watched without expression. Eleanor continued. Grace must be protected from any adult who treats her inheritance as a leash. Thomas Whitaker is the only person I trust to stand between that child and my son's ambition. Julian whispered something to his lawyer. Daniel then presented the forged transfer documents. This was where my old life entered the room. I took the stand. Benton Vale looked almost pleased. Men like him enjoy old witnesses. They think age is a loose thread they can pull until the whole sweater comes apart. Mr. Whitaker, he said, you are not a handwriting expert, correct? No. You are not a corporate attorney? No. You are not a psychologist? No. You are not a psychologist? No. You are a retired postal employee? I am a retired federal law enforcement officer with the Postal Inspection Service. His mouth tightened. But your work involved mail. My work involved fraud committed through documents, signatures, financial instruments, identity theft, elder scams, insurance schemes, and forged authorizations sent through federal systems. Daniel hid a small smile. Vale tried another road. Are you emotionally angry at your son? Yes. That answer stopped him. You admit that? I would be worried about myself if I wasn't. A few people in the back moved softly. Vale leaned in. You want this court to believe you can objectively evaluate documents that benefit you and harm your only living child? The documents do not benefit me, I said. They protect Grace. Convenient. No, I said. Heavy. He blinked. Daniel redirected. He placed Eleanor's real signature and the disputed transfer signature side by side on a screen. Mr. Whitaker, what do you notice? I explained the pressure pattern. The upward finish missing. The spacing between first and last name. The artificial pause before the W simple things. Small things. Small things. The kind the world walks past. Then Daniel showed the hospital record from the date one document was supposedly notarized in King of Prussia. Eleanor had been in Philadelphia under monitored care. Then Paula Renshaw appeared by video, pale and frightened, and admitted she notarized blank pages at Reed Callahan's request. Reed stood up so fast his chair hit the wall. Judge Markham ordered him to sit. The sale documents came next. The Lantern strategic payments, the transfers, the emails between Julian and Northbridge Capital. One email from Julian read, once mother passes, resistance ends. Grace's block can be handled through placement. Need close before leaven surfaces. Judge Markham read that one herself. Placement, she said slowly. Meaning the child? Julian's lawyer stood. Your Honor, the judge raised one hand. I asked a question. Daniel answered, yes, Your Honor. He submitted the academy documents. Monday transport schedule. Intake forms describing Grace as unstable, defiant, and emotionally fixated on dead relatives. Then he submitted Grace's school counselor notes. The room got colder with every page. Finally, Daniel played Julian's recorded call with Eleanor. Grace is too much like Mara, weak, sensitive, always making people carry her feelings. I am not letting another fragile girl control this family. I saw Julian close his eyes, not in shame, in anger. That was when the lawyer set the line from the title of my life's most painful chapter. Daniel turned from the scream to my son, Mr. Mine. Whitaker, your mother's will does not punish you for being rich, successful, or ambitious. It punishes one thing only, using family as property. And under the clause you triggered at the memorial reception, the father you said deserved nothing, now has the legal authority to recommend whether your inheritance is released, restricted, or revoked. The courtroom went still. Julian stood. This is insane. Judge Markham's voice cut through him. Sit down, Mr. Whitaker. He did not. She was manipulated, Julian snapped, pointing at me. He did this. He poisoned her against me. I looked at my son, For the first time all day, I spoke without being asked. Julian, your mother gave you every chance to choose love when nobody was forcing you. His face twisted. You don't get to talk about love. No, I said softly, but I get to recognize its absence. Judge Markham ordered a recess. When she returned, she read her decision slowly, with the kind of care that tells you every word will matter later. The court recognized Eleanor's later will as controlling pending full probate review. Julian was suspended from any executor role. The proposed sale of Chandler Care was frozen. All transfers involving Lantern Strategic, Reed Callahan, and Vanessa's family entities were referred for forensic accounting. The forged documents were referred to the district attorney. Grace's placement was blocked immediately. Temporary protective oversight was granted, with Grace to remain in Pennsylvania, continue school, and have unrestricted contact with me. Julian and Vanessa were prohibited from removing her from the county without court approval, and I was appointed temporary special executor and trust protector, just as Eleanor had asked. Julian sat down as if someone had cut the strings holding him upright. Vanessa cried quietly, but not for Grace. I could tell. She cried the way people cry when a door to money closes. Outside the courthouse, Daniel touched my shoulder. You did well. I don't feel like I won. You weren't supposed to, he said. You were supposed to stop him. Grace came to my house that evening with a court-appointed family services worker. She had one suitcase, a backpack, and a folder of drawings held tight against her chest. When she stepped inside my kitchen, she looked around at the yellow walls, the small table, the old clock, and the photograph of Eleanor by the window. Is this where Nana ate pancakes? She asked. Many times. Did she burn them? Only the first one. She said the first pancake was a warning. Grace almost smiled. Then she saw the broken music box on the table. Her face fell. I'm sorry Dad broke it. You didn't break it. I know. But I feel sorry anyway. That sentence told me more about her home life than any court file. I pulled out a chair. Come here. She sat beside me. Together we looked at the Blue Jay, the cracked base, the tiny metal song cylinder. Can it be fixed? She asked. I know someone who can try. Will it still play? Maybe not the same. Grace touched the broken wing. Nana said broken songs still count. My throat tightened. She was right. 2 weeks later, I took the music box to a repair shop in Lancaster run by a man named Otto Brenner, who had hands steadier than a surgeon and kinder than most priests. He studied the Blue Jay under a magnifying lamp. This was loved hard, he said. Yes, good. Things loved gently don't always survive. Things loved hard learn how. He repaired what he could. The crack in the mirror stayed. The Blue Jay's wing showed a thin gold line where he joined it back together. Like those Japanese bowls repaired with gold Grace later showed me in a library book. The song played again, though one note still clicked. I liked it better that way. Perfect things make people nervous. The months that followed were not simple. Stories like this never truly end at the courthouse. Julian fought. Vanessa fought. Reed hired lawyers. Northbridge pretended it knew nothing until emails proved otherwise. The district attorney opened investigations. The board removed Julian. Chandler Care's employee pension protection stayed intact. Eleanor's estate did not pour into my lap. I did not want it to. Grace's trust remained for Grace. The foundation continued funding rural medication delivery, elder transport, and caregiver respite programs. I accepted only what Eleanor had written for me in a small paragraph near the end of the will. To Thomas, I leave the Blue Jay music box, the house account for Grace's safe residence if needed, and my thanks for noticing small things when everyone else wanted large ones. That was enough. More than enough. Julian eventually pled guilty to financial misconduct and forgery-related charges after Reed turned on him. He did not go to prison for the rest of his life. Real justice is rarely that dramatic. But he lost control of the company, lost access to Grace's trust, and lost the public image he had polished for years. His inheritance was placed in a restricted fund he could not touch directly. When Daniel asked me for my formal recommendation under Eleanor's clause, I sat with the paper for 2 days. Grace found me at the kitchen table. Are you deciding about Dad? She asked. Yes. Do you hate him? I looked at that child, and I gave her the truth carefully. I hate what he did. That's not what I asked. Children know when adults dodge. I folded my hands. No, I don't hate him, but I don't trust him. She nodded like that made sense. What will you do? I will recommend that he gets enough to live if he chooses help, but not enough to hurt people. Grace thought about that. Nana would like that. I hope so. A year after the memorial, Grace played the Blue Jay music box at her school art show. She had made a painting of a bird sitting on an open mailbox. Under it, she wrote, "Some things arrive late, but they still arrive." I stood in the back of the classroom with Daniel Levin on one side and Otto Brenner on the other. Grace saw me, smiled, and turned the tiny key. The song came out thin and soft. One note clicked. I closed my eyes. For a moment, I saw Eleanor at 24, laughing in our first apartment. I saw Mara dancing barefoot in the kitchen. I saw Julian as a little boy before ambition hardened around him like cement. I saw Grace, still here, still safe, still soft, in a world that kept telling her softness was weakness. After the show, Grace slipped her hand into mine. "Grandpa Tom, yes, sweetheart. Do you think Nana knew Dad would break it?" I looked down at the music box in her arms. I think she hoped he wouldn't, but she was ready if he did. "Yes." Grace leaned against me. "That's love too, right? Being ready?" I swallowed hard. "Yes," I said, "that's love too." Money can buy buildings, lawyers, silence, and rooms full of people willing to look away. But money cannot turn cruelty into strength. It cannot make a child feel safe. It cannot erase a signature, hide a recording, or change what a broken little music box was built to reveal. My son told me I deserved nothing. Maybe he was right in one way. None of us deserve love like Eleanor's. Not fully, not cleanly, not after all the mistakes we make. But sometimes love leaves instructions. Sometimes it hides a key where only cruelty can knock it loose. And sometimes, when a proud man breaks the smallest thing in the room, he finally opens the door to the truth.